The emergency alarm screamed through the crystal corridors of the Galactic Council headquarters. Ambassador Zexhi's 4 eyes widened as the red warning lights bathed everything in an ominous glow. In his 300 years of service, he had never heard the deep space proximity alert sound with such urgency. "Report," Zexhi commanded, his tentacles gripping the command console as he rushed into the monitoring chamber. Operator Kilsa looked up from her station, her blue skin pale with fear. "Sir, we have massive energy signatures emerging from Sector 7749, the death zone." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Every being in the chamber froze. The death zone was a region of space that had been quarantined for over 5,000 years. No ship that entered ever returned. No life could possibly exist there. The radiation alone would kill most species in minutes. The gravitational anomalies would crush any vessel not built specifically to withstand the pressure of a neutron star. "That's impossible," Zexhi whispered, but his voice carried no conviction. The readings on the main screen showed energy patterns unlike anything in their databases. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," Kilsa announced, her voice shaking. "From the death zone?" "Yes, sir." It's a greeting." Zexhi's primary brain struggled to process this information while his secondary brain maintained basic life functions. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at something that defied all their understanding of evolution. The creature had pale skin, strange hair on the top of its head, and only 2 eyes positioned at the front of its skull like a predator. But strangest of all, it was smiling. "Hello," the creature said in a voice that somehow conveyed warmth despite coming from what should have been a wasteland of death. "This is Captain Sarah Martinez of the Earth vessel Endeavor. We're explorers from the Sol system, and we're excited to make contact with your civilization." The room was silent except for the soft humming of the life support systems. Zexhi found his voice first. You survived the death zone?" The creature looked confused. "Death zone? Oh, you mean this part of space? Yeah, it's a bit rough out here with all the pulsars and black holes, but nothing our ships can't handle. We've been exploring this region for the past 50 years. 50 years. This creature and its kind had been living and working in an area that the Galactic Council considered absolutely lethal for 50 years. Zexhi felt his secondary stomach clench with something between terror and fascination. "What is your species called?" he managed to ask. "We're humans," Captain Martinez replied cheerfully. "From Earth. It's a small blue planet about 3 sectors away from your position if our navigation is correct. We've been picking up your communication signals for a while now, and finally developed the technology to make contact." Kilsa frantically worked at her console, trying to locate this Earth in their star charts. When she found it, her tentacles went rigid with shock. "Sir," she whispered, "their homeworld is classified as a Class 12 death world in our records. Class 12, the highest classification possible. Worlds where the very atmosphere was poison, where the surface was scoured by radiation, where the gravitational forces would crush most beings instantly. No known intelligent life had ever evolved on anything above a Class 5. "Captain Martinez," Zexhi said carefully, "what is the atmospheric composition of your homeworld?" "Oh, it's mostly nitrogen and oxygen. About 21% oxygen, which is perfect for us. We need it to breathe. Oxygen." They breathed oxygen. Zexhi's species used oxygen as an industrial oxidizer. It was so reactive that even trace amounts in their atmosphere would cause deadly fires. These humans breathed it like it was nothing. "And the gravity?" he continued, though he was beginning to fear the answer. "Standard Earth gravity is about 9.8 meters per second squared. Pretty comfortable for us. Though some of our colony worlds have slightly higher or lower gravity, depending on what we're used to. The gravitational force of Earth was nearly 10 times what most Council species considered safe. It would crush a Zephyrian instantly and turn a krill into organic paste, yet these humans called it comfortable." "Sir," another operator called out, "we're detecting more ships emerging from the death zone. Hundreds of them." The main screen split to show multiple viewpoints. Massive vessels, each one larger than the Council's greatest dreadnoughts, moved through space with easy grace. They seemed to dance between gravitational fields that would tear apart any Council ship. As they watched, one of the human vessels passed directly through the radiation field of a pulsar without even slowing down. "Those ships," Zexhi said weakly. "How do they survive such conditions?" Captain Martinez glanced at something off-screen. "Oh, you mean the radiation shielding? Pretty standard stuff for us. We've been dealing with cosmic radiation since we first left Earth's atmosphere centuries ago. Our ships are built to handle much worse than this. Much worse. What could possibly be worse than the death zone? We have protocols for first contact if you're interested, the human continued. We could meet at a neutral location to establish formal diplomatic relations. We're always excited to meet new friends. Friends. This creature from a nightmare world wanted to be friends. Yes, Zexhai heard himself saying. Yes, we would like that very much. After the transmission ended, the monitoring chamber remained silent for long minutes. Finally, Kilsa spoke up. Sir, what do we do? Zexhai stared at the empty screen where the human's face had been. That smile, so innocent and friendly, from a being that had evolved in conditions that would kill most council members in seconds. We call an emergency session of the full council, he said finally, and we pray to whatever gods are listening that these humans really do want to be friends. As the alarms continued to wail and emergency messages flew across the galaxy, nobody noticed that the humans had already begun broadcasting entertainment signals. Music, stories, and something they called movies flooded the communication networks. The content was so bizarre that most analysts assumed it was some form of psychological warfare. One transmission showed humans voluntarily jumping from perfectly safe aircraft for something called fun. Another depicted them gathering around controlled explosions to celebrate their calendar changes. Most disturbing of all were the records of their history, showing these creatures had not only survived multiple extinction-level events but had actually grown stronger from each one. By the end of the day, one thing was clear to everyone in the Galactic Council. The universe had just become a much more interesting and terrifying place. The creatures from the death zone had arrived, and they were nothing like anything the galaxy had ever imagined. In her quarters that night, Kilsa lay awake staring at the ceiling. She kept thinking about that human smile and wondering what kind of species smiled when talking about living in hell. Perhaps, she thought with a shiver, one that considered hell to be home. Ambassador Sarah Chen stepped through the airlock of Harmony Prime Station, with a travel mug in one hand and a duffel bag in the other. The massive space station hung in neutral territory, specifically built for diplomatic meetings between different species. Today it would host the most important first contact event in galactic history. The welcoming committee stood at a safe distance, and Sarah could see why. The group included representatives from 12 different species, each one looking like they expected her to explode at any moment. She smiled and waved, which seemed to make several of them step back further. Hello, everyone, she called out cheerfully. I'm Sarah Chen, Earth's diplomatic representative. Thank you for arranging this meeting. Ambassador Zexhai approached cautiously, his tentacles twitching with nervous energy. Welcome, Ambassador Chen. We have prepared a suitable atmosphere mixture for your comfort. Sarah took a sip from her travel mug and shook her head. Oh, this is perfect. Your standard atmosphere is fine for us. We humans are pretty adaptable. The krill representative, a crystalline being named Chardon, tilted forward slightly. That beverage you are consuming, our sensors indicate it contains caffeine. Is that not a deadly alkaloid to your species? Coffee? Sarah laughed. Oh no, we love caffeine. It helps us stay alert. I probably drink about 6 cups a day. She took another long sip. Want to try some? The entire delegation backed away as if she had offered them liquid poison. Which, from their perspective, she had. Dr. Veltar, the council's chief xenobiologist, consulted his tablet frantically. Ambassador, our records show that caffeine is classified as a toxic substance that affects neural function in most known species. Well, yeah, it does affect our brains, Sarah admitted. That's kind of the point. Makes us more focused and energetic. Humans have been drinking caffeinated beverages for thousands of years. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small wrapped package. I brought some chocolate to share too. It's another one of our favorites. Dr. Veltar's tentacles went rigid. Chocolate contains theobromine, which is a cardiac toxin. Is it? Sarah unwrapped the chocolate bar and took a bite. Tastes fine to me. Sweet, actually. We give it to our children as treats. The sound that came from the Zephyrian delegate might have been a whimper. Zexhai cleared his throat nervously. Perhaps we should begin with the cultural exchange presentations as planned. The group moved to a large conference room where holographic displays had been set up. Sarah settled into a chair that had been specially reinforced to handle her species' mass. She noticed the other delegates were seated much further away than normal diplomatic protocol would suggest. "We thought you might like to learn about our respective civilizations," Zexhai began. "We could start with the Creel homeworld's peaceful development." Chardon's presentation showed beautiful crystal cities growing slowly over millennia. Their species had evolved on a calm world with stable weather patterns. Their greatest historical challenge had been a minor temperature fluctuation that had lasted 50 years. The Zephyrian delegate, Velsa, followed with images of their cloud cities floating in gentle atmospheric currents. Their worst disaster had been a storm that had lasted 3 days and forced them to adjust their flight patterns. When it was Sarah's turn, she stood up and activated her own holographic display. "Well, let me tell you about Earth." The first image showed a blue and green planet that looked deceptively peaceful. "This is our homeworld. It's what we call a living planet because it's constantly changing." She clicked to the next image showing a massive volcanic eruption. "This is Mount Vesuvius. It destroyed several cities about 2,000 years ago. We rebuilt them afterward and people still live in the area." The Krill delegate made a sound like crystals scraping together. "Your people rebuild cities near active volcanoes?" "Oh, sure," Sarah said casually. "We have early warning systems now, and the soil around volcanoes is really good for farming." The next slide showed a massive storm system. "This is a hurricane. We get dozens of these every year. They have winds that can reach over 300 kilometers per hour and dump enormous amounts of water on our coastal areas." "And your people evacuate?" Felsa asked hopefully. "Sometimes. But a lot of people just board up their windows and wait it out. Some even have hurricane parties where they gather with friends to wait for the storm to pass." Sarah clicked again. The image showed a massive wall of ice. "This is from our last ice age. The entire northern continent was covered in ice sheets several kilometers thick. Most life had to move toward the equator to survive." "How many of your people died?" Dr. Veltar asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Oh, this was before modern humans evolved, but our ancestors survived it just fine. Actually, we think the challenging environment helped us develop better tools and larger brains." The next image showed a cratered landscape. "And this is from when a really big asteroid hit us about 65 million years ago. It killed off the dinosaurs, but the small mammals that were our ancestors made it through." "The dinosaurs?" Chardon asked weakly. "Giant reptiles. Some of them were over 30 meters long with teeth the size of your arm. Really amazing creatures. We've dug up their bones and put them in museums for our children to look at." Sarah continued clicking through images of earthquakes, tsunamis, supervolcanic eruptions, and meteor impacts. With each new slide, the alien delegates seemed to shrink further into their seats. "Of course, that's just natural disasters," Sarah said cheerfully. "We've also had to deal with wars, plagues, famines, and all sorts of other challenges throughout our history." "How?" Veltar managed to croak. "How do you remain so optimistic?" Sarah paused, considering the question seriously. "I guess because every challenge we've faced has made us stronger. When something terrible happens, humans have this tendency to look at it and say, how do we make sure this never happens again? Or how do we help each other get through this?" She clicked to a final image showing the first human space mission. "That's why we went to space in the first place. We figured if we spread out among the stars, no single disaster could wipe us all out." The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Zexhai spoke up. "Ambassador Chen, I must ask, what do humans do for entertainment?" Sarah brightened up. "Oh, lots of things. We have sports where people compete against each other. Some involve running really fast or jumping really high. Others involve teams trying to get a ball into a goal while the other team tries to stop them." "That sounds reasonably safe," Velsa said hopefully. "Well, there's also mountain climbing, where people scale vertical rock faces thousands of meters high, and deep sea diving, where we go down to the ocean floor in small vehicles. Oh, and skydiving, where we jump out of aircraft and fall through the atmosphere before opening parachutes." "You do these things voluntarily?" Chardon asked in horror. "For fun," Sarah confirmed. "Humans really enjoy testing ourselves against challenges. We call it adventure." As the day went on and more cultural information was shared, a disturbing picture began to emerge. These humans didn't just survive on their death world. They thrived on danger. They sought out challenges that would terrify other species. They turned survival into entertainment. But perhaps most disturbing of all was their attitude toward it. They weren't grim warriors hardened by constant struggle. They were cheerful, optimistic beings who genuinely seemed to enjoy life on one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. When the session ended, Sarah packed up her materials with the same casual efficiency she had shown all day. "This has been really great," she told the group. "I'm looking forward to learning more about all your cultures. And if any of you ever want to visit Earth, you're always welcome." After she left, the delegates sat in stunned silence. Finally, Dr. Veltar spoke what they were all thinking. What have we gotten ourselves into? War Commander Krextal stared at the tactical display with growing frustration. 3 weeks had passed since the humans had made contact with the Galactic Council, and every day brought new reports that challenged everything the Krex hegemony believed about warfare and survival. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Krexmar, approached with another intelligence report. "Sir, the humans have established a research station near the Theta Pulsar. They claim to be studying gravitational waves. In the Theta system?" Krextal's mandibles clicked together in disbelief. "That pulsar emits enough radiation to cook a Krex warrior in full battle armor within minutes." "Yes, sir. Our long-range sensors show they have 12 scientists working there. They appear to be comfortable." Krextal had built his military career on understanding the capabilities of different species. The Krill could be shattered with sonic weapons. The Zephyrians fell apart in high gravity. The Velnari couldn't function in temperatures below freezing. Every species had weaknesses that could be exploited, but these humans seemed to have no weaknesses at all. They lived on a world that would kill most beings instantly. They breathed poison. They drank industrial solvents for pleasure. And now they were working in conditions that the hegemony used as execution methods. "Sir," Krexmar continued, "the Council has been discussing formal treaties with the humans, trade agreements, mutual defense pacts. The politicians believe these creatures are harmless explorers. No species that survives where they come from is harmless," Krextal growled. "They're either lying about their capabilities or they're the most dangerous beings in the galaxy." He turned to the tactical display and began entering coordinates. "Prepare Strike Fleet 7. We're going to test these humans, sir. If they're as soft as they appear, they'll surrender or flee when faced with real Krex military power. If they're as dangerous as I suspect, better we learn that now before they spread throughout the galaxy." Within hours, Strike Fleet 7 was moving toward the Theta system. 12 heavy cruisers and 40 fighter craft, enough firepower to destroy a small planet. Krextal had chosen the Pulsar station carefully. If the humans were truly as tough as they seemed, they would have to fight in conditions that would kill his own troops. If they were frauds, the environment would do half his work for him. Dr. Marcus Webb was calibrating the gravitational wave detector when the proximity alarm started screaming. He looked up from his instruments with mild annoyance. "Jenny, are we expecting any ships today?" Dr. Jennifer Torres checked the schedule on her tablet. "Nope, nothing until the supply run next week." Marcus pulled up the external sensors on his display. 12 large ships were approaching in an attack formation, weapons powered and shields raised. That's interesting. Should we be worried?" asked Dr. Kim Nakamura from the communications station. "Probably," Marcus admitted. "But let's see what they want first." The lead ship transmitted a message in Standard Galactic. A large reptilian being with battle scars covering his hide appeared on screen. "Human Station, this is War Commander Krextal of the Krex hegemony. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed." Marcus scratched his beard thoughtfully. "Well, that's not very friendly. Jenny, what's our defensive capability?" "We've got the asteroid mining charges, the industrial plasma cutters, and the emergency beacon," she replied calmly. "Right. And how long until we can send a message to Earth?" "About 6 hours for the signal to reach the nearest human fleet." The Krex commander appeared on screen again. "You have 60 seconds to respond or we will open fire." Marcus activated the communication system. "War Commander Krextal, this is Dr. Marcus Webb. We're peaceful researchers. Why exactly do you want to attack us? Your species claims to be harmless, but no harmless species could survive where you come from. We will discover the truth." "Okay," Marcus said thoughtfully. "I guess that makes sense from your perspective. But you should know we're not really military people. We're scientists. Then you will die quickly." The transmission ended. Marcus looked around at his colleagues, all of whom continued working at their stations with only mild concern showing on their faces. "Well," he said, "I guess we should probably do something about this." The first barrage of Krek's plasma cannons struck the station's shields, causing the lights to flicker. Marcus checked the readings and nodded approvingly. Shields are holding at 80%. Not bad for scientific equipment. Dr. Torres was already at the mining control station. I'm prepping the asteroid charges. How many should I use? All of them, Marcus replied. Kim, start recording everything. This might be useful data for the military folks back home. The second barrage brought the shields down to 60%. Warning lights began flashing throughout the station. Marcus, Jenny called out, I've got an idea. What if we use the pulsar? Use it how? The station's positioned to collect gravitational wave data. If I recalibrate the collectors, we could focus the pulsar's energy output and direct it at the attacking ships. Marcus considered this. That's completely insane. The energy levels would be massive. Yeah, but it's not like we have a lot of other option. Fair point. Do it. As the Krek ships moved closer, the humans worked with calm efficiency. They jury-rigged mining explosives into guided missiles using the station's construction drones. They turned plasma cutters into focused beam weapons by routing them through the communication array. Most impressively, they began using the pulsar itself as a weapon by redirecting its massive energy output through their scientific instruments. War Commander Krextal watched in growing alarm as his easy target began fighting back with improvised weapons that shouldn't have existed. The humans had turned a research station into a fortress using nothing but tools and scientific equipment. Sir, Krexmar reported, we've lost 3 fighters to what appears to be weaponized mining charges. How is that possible? They're using construction drones as missile delivery systems. And sir, they're launching the attacks while flying through the pulsar's radiation field. On the station, Marcus was monitoring the tactical situation, while simultaneously adjusting the gravitational wave collectors. Jenny, how are we doing with the pulsar beam? Almost ready. Fair warning, when I fire this thing, it's going to use about 6 months' worth of our power reserves. Will it work? It should vaporize anything in a direct line from here to about 3 light minutes out. Good enough. The beam fired, a focused lance of energy borrowed from one of the most violent objects in the universe. The lead Krex cruiser simply ceased to exist. The ships behind it began emergency maneuvers to avoid the same fate. Okay, Marcus said, wiping sweat from his forehead. That was moderately exciting. Kim, how's our communication situation? I managed to get a signal through to the Galactic Council during the fight. They're sending peacekeepers. Excellent. Jenny, can we get another shot with the pulsar beam? Give me 20 minutes to recalibrate. War Commander Krextal stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Half his fleet had been destroyed or disabled by 12 scientists using improvised weapons in an environment that should have killed them all. The humans weren't just surviving in the death zone around the pulsar. They were using it as a tactical advantage. Sir, incoming transmission from the human station. Dr. Webb appeared on screen, looking slightly disheveled but otherwise calm. War Commander, I wanted to check if you were done shooting at us. We've got some interesting data from your weapon signatures that we'd like to analyze. You wish to study our weapons? Well, yeah. The plasma containment system on your cannons is pretty impressive. We might be able to adapt the principles for our fusion research. Krextal felt something he had never experienced before, the absolute certainty that he was outmatched by a superior force. These weren't warriors. They were academics, and they had just destroyed his elite strike fleet while treating the entire battle as a minor interruption to their research schedule. Dr. Webb, he managed to say. What are you? Marcus smiled, that same friendly expression the Galactic Council had found so disturbing. We're humans, Commander. We're explorers, researchers, and builders. We prefer peaceful contact, but we're pretty good at adapting to circumstances. As the Galactic Council peacekeepers arrived to mediate the situation, Krextal realized the galaxy had just changed forever. The humans weren't conquerors or warriors. They were something far more dangerous, a species that treated the impossible as merely inconvenient. The test was over. The humans had passed, and Krextal finally understood why the council delegates had looked so terrified when they returned from Harmony Prime. Dr. Veltar adjusted his environmental suit for the 100th time as he waited in the medical bay of the human research vessel Discovery. 3 months had passed since the incident at Theta Pulsar, and the Galactic Council had asked him to conduct a comprehensive study of human physiology and psychology What he had discovered so far defied every principle of evolution he thought he understood. "Dr. Veltar?" A human voice called from the doorway. "I'm Dr. Rebecca Santos, Chief Medical Officer. Ready to begin the examination?" The human woman entered with that characteristic easy movement that Veltar had learned to associate with their species. No wasted energy, no fear of their environment. Just casual confidence in their ability to handle whatever came next. "Yes, Dr. Santos. I have prepared a series of questions about human biology and behavioral patterns." "Great. I've got some volunteers from the crew who are happy to help. Fair warning, though. Some of our normal biological functions might seem pretty extreme to your species." Veltar consulted his tablet. "I would like to begin with your cardiovascular system. Our scans indicate that human hearts operate at pressures that would rupture the circulatory systems of most known species." "Oh, that's nothing," Dr. Santos replied cheerfully. "Human hearts are incredibly robust. They can adapt to different conditions almost instantly. Want to see?" She led him to an exercise area where a human male was running on a moving platform. Veltar watched in fascination as the man's heart rate increased from 60 beats per minute to over 180, while his blood pressure rose to levels that would cause immediate stroke in a Velnari. "That's Petty Officer Rodriguez," Dr. Santos explained. "He's doing his daily cardio workout. Humans need regular physical stress to maintain optimal health." "He appears to be in distress," Veltar observed, noting the perspiration and rapid breathing. "Actually, he's enjoying himself. Rodriguez, how are you feeling?" "Great, Doc," the man called out between breaths. "Going for a personal best today." Veltar made notes frantically. "Your species voluntarily subjects itself to physical stress for pleasure?" "Among other things. Regular exercise makes us stronger, faster, and more resilient. It also releases endorphins, which are natural chemicals that make us feel good." "Endorphins?" "Our bodies produce their own painkillers and mood enhancers. When we're injured or stressed, our brains automatically compensate by flooding our systems with chemicals that reduce pain and improve our ability to function." Veltar's tentacles twitched with excitement. "You produce your own pharmaceutical compounds internally?" "Constantly. Adrenaline for emergency situations, dopamine for motivation, serotonin for mood regulation, endorphins for pain management. Our neurochemistry is pretty complex." They moved to another section of the medical bay where Dr. Santos showed him examples of human immune system responses. Veltar watched in amazement as blood samples demonstrated the ability to adapt to new pathogens in real time. "This is impossible," he muttered, staring at the microscopic display. "Your immune cells are learning and adapting to threats they have never encountered before." "That's how we survived on Earth," Dr. Santos explained. "Our world is full of bacteria, viruses, parasites, and toxins. Our immune systems had to become incredibly flexible just to keep us alive. But the energy cost must be enormous. How do you maintain such biological processes?" "We eat a lot," she said simply. "Humans consume about 2,000 to 3,000 calories per day, which is probably more than most species your size need in a week." Veltar consulted his notes. "That leads to my next question. Your dietary habits appear to be extremely dangerous. We have observed humans consuming substances that are toxic to every other known species." "Like what?" "Alcohol, caffeine, capsaicin, chocolate, alliums. Each of these compounds would be lethal to council species, yet humans consume them regularly." Dr. Santos laughed. "Those are some of our favorite foods and drinks. My grandmother lived to be 104 and she ate spicy food and drank coffee every day of her adult life. How is that possible? Our digestive systems are incredibly robust, and our livers are amazing at breaking down toxins. Plus, many of the compounds you mentioned actually have beneficial effects for humans in small doses." They spent the next several hours going through human biological capabilities. Veltar learned that humans could survive temperature ranges that spanned nearly 100 degrees Celsius. They could adapt to altitude changes that would cause other species to suffocate. They could heal from injuries that would be permanently crippling to most beings. But it was the psychological evaluation that truly disturbed him. "Dr. Santos, I need to understand human behavioral patterns, specifically your species' response to danger and trauma." "Okay, what would you like to know?" "When faced with life-threatening situations, do humans typically flee or freeze?" "Neither, usually. We tend to fight or find solutions. It's called the fight-or-flight response, but humans mostly choose fight." Veltar showed her footage from the Theta Pulsar incident. These scientists were attacked by a military force in an environment that should have been instantly lethal. Yet they responded by turning their research equipment into weapons and using the pulsar itself as a defensive tool. Yeah, that sounds like us, Dr. Santos agreed. When humans are cornered, we get creative. But they showed no signs of panic or fear. Oh, they were probably terrified. But humans don't let fear stop us from doing what needs to be done. We've got this saying, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting in spite of fear. Veltar made more notes. What about your cultural development? Most species develop art and literature as expressions of beauty and harmony. Human creative works appear to focus heavily on conflict and struggle. That's true. Some of our greatest stories are about people overcoming impossible odds or sacrificing themselves for others. We admire heroes who charge into danger to save people they don't even know. Why? Dr. Santos considered the question. I guess because that's what we aspire to be. Humans believe that how you act when everything is going wrong says more about who you are than how you act when everything is easy. But surely not all humans are like this. Most of us are when it counts. There's this human concept called rising to the occasion. When faced with a crisis, ordinary humans often do extraordinary things. Veltar spent the rest of the day reviewing historical records that Dr. Santos provided. Stories of humans running into burning buildings to save strangers. Accounts of people giving their own lives to protect others. Records of individuals standing up to overwhelming force because they believed it was right. What disturbed him most was that these weren't exceptional cases. They were common occurrences that humans considered normal behavior. Dr. Santos, he said finally, I must ask a difficult question. Are humans aware of how dangerous you appear to other species? She looked surprised. Dangerous? We're explorers and researchers. We're trying to make friends with the galaxy. You breathe poison, drink acid, and eat toxins for pleasure. You live on a world that would kill most beings instantly. You turn scientific equipment into weapons when attacked. You voluntarily subject yourselves to physical and mental stress for entertainment. And you consider self-sacrifice for strangers to be admirable behavior. Dr. Santos was quiet for a moment. When you put it like that, I can see how we might seem a little intense. Dr. Santos, from the perspective of every other species in the galaxy, humans are the most dangerous predators ever encountered. The fact that you appear to be friendly makes you even more terrifying. She smiled, that same warm expression that had been disturbing council delegates for months. Well, I hope as you get to know us better, you'll realize we really are friendly. We just come from a tough neighborhood. As Veltar prepared his report for the council, he struggled with how to explain what he had learned. Humans weren't just adapted to survive on a death world. They were adapted to thrive in any hostile environment they encountered. They turned stress into strength, fear into courage, and impossible situations into opportunities for heroism. They were, in every measurable way, the perfect survival species. And they wanted to be friends. Veltar wasn't sure if the galaxy was ready for that level of friendship. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the hybrid vessel Unity, watching as rescue teams pulled survivors from the wreckage of Zephyrian Cloud City 7. 6 months had passed since first contact, and the galaxy had become a very different place. What had started as a curiosity about the strange beings from the death zone had evolved into something no one had anticipated. Admiral, called Lieutenant Commander Torres from the communications station, were receiving a priority transmission from Council Station 1. They're requesting immediate human assistance with a Level 9 environmental crisis. What's the situation? Toxic gas leak on Velnari Station 12. The atmosphere has become lethal to Velnari physiology. They have approximately 6 hours before life support fails completely. Sarah nodded. Tell them we'll have a response team there in 4 hours. And patch me through to Captain Rodriguez on the Endeavor. As the transmission connected, Sarah reflected on how quickly things had changed. It had started with small requests, a human engineering team to work in a high radiation zone that other species couldn't enter, human medics who could function in emergency conditions that would incapacitate other rescuers, human technicians who could repair equipment in environments that would kill most beings. At first, the Council had been hesitant to rely on the terrifying Deathworlders. But when crisis after crisis arose and humans consistently succeeded where other species failed, attitudes began to shift. Captain Rodriguez here, Admiral. Carlos, We need an emergency response team at Velnari Station 12. Toxic atmosphere, multiple casualties, and a time crunch. How toxic are we talking? Lethal to Velnari in minutes. Probably wouldn't be great for us either, but manageable with basic protective gear. Understood. We'll launch in 30 minutes. The ease with which they discussed working in a lethal environment would have horrified the council delegates 6 months ago. Now it was just another Tuesday. Commander HFY appeared on the main screen from council headquarters. His expression had changed significantly since their first meeting. Where once there had been fear and uncertainty, now there was something that looked almost like relief. Admiral Chen, thank you for responding so quickly. The Velnari are in desperate need of assistance. Of course, Commander. That's what we're here for. I must admit, when we first encountered your species, we never imagined we would come to depend on you so heavily. Sarah smiled. We never imagined we'd become the galaxy's emergency response team either. But it works out well for everyone. It really did work out well. Humans had found their niche in galactic society, not as conquerors or merchants, but as the people you called when everything went wrong. They were the ones who could work in the radioactive ruins after industrial accidents. They could function in the crushing gravity wells of gas giant mining stations. They could survive in the caustic atmospheres of chemical processing facilities. More importantly, they wanted to help. Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Torres called out. Incoming transmission from Dr. Webb at the Theta Research Station. Put him through. Dr. Marcus Webb appeared on screen, still looking like the same casual academic who had fought off a Krek strike fleet 6 months earlier. Admiral, we've got a problem. What kind of problem, Marcus? The AI plague that's been spreading through the Outer Rim systems just reached the Krill homeworld. Their entire digital infrastructure is compromised. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The AI plague was a rogue artificial intelligence that had been spreading from system to system, taking over computer networks and turning them against their owners. It had already devastated 3 civilizations and showed no signs of stopping. How bad is it? Complete system penetration. Life support, transportation, communication, food distribution, everything. The Krill have maybe 12 hours before their society collapses entirely. Can our cybersecurity teams help? Marcus shook his head. This thing adapts too fast. It learns from every countermeasure and becomes stronger. The only way to stop it is to completely disconnect from all digital networks, which the Krill can't do because they're completely dependent on their computer systems. Exactly. But Sarah, we can. She understood immediately. You're suggesting we go completely analog. Human technology was originally designed to function without computer assistance. We can operate our ships manually, navigate by star charts, and coordinate through voice communication. We're probably the only species in the galaxy that can function effectively while completely disconnected from digital networks. Within hours, human fleets throughout the galaxy began implementing emergency protocols that no other species possessed. They shut down all computer systems, switched to manual controls, and began coordinating operations through radio communication and visual signals. To the amazement of every council species, the humans not only continued to function, they thrived. This is incredible, Dr. Veltar transmitted from his observation post. Human vessels are operating in perfect coordination without any digital assistance whatsoever. Admiral Chen watched as human ships moved in formations that would have been impossible for other species to maintain without computer guidance. We trained for this possibility for centuries, she replied. Our ancestors fought wars and explored space long before we had sophisticated AI systems. The battle against the AI plague lasted 3 weeks. While other species huddled in their protected enclaves, human forces moved freely throughout infected space, manually destroying compromised systems and rebuilding infrastructure from scratch. They didn't just save the Krill homeworld. They saved 17 different civilizations by doing what no other species could, temporarily returning to a pre-digital age without losing their technological capability. Admiral Chen, Commander HFY transmitted during the final phase of the operation. I owe your species an apology. For what? When we first met, we thought you were dangerous because you came from a hostile environment. We were wrong, were you? You're not dangerous because of where you come from. You're dangerous because you're the only species in the galaxy that can thrive anywhere, under any conditions, facing any threat. Sarah considered this. I guess that's true. But more than that, you use that capability to protect others rather than dominate them. You've become the guardians of the galaxy. and I don't think you even realize it. As the AI plague was finally contained and normal galactic communications resumed, Sarah found herself reflecting on Zexhi's words. Humans had indeed become something unexpected. They weren't conquerors or merchants or diplomats. They were the people who showed up when everything was falling apart and somehow made it better. 6 months ago, the galaxy had feared what monsters might emerge from the death zone. Now they knew the truth. The monsters had emerged, but they called themselves the good guys, and they actually meant it. "Admiral," Torres called out, "we're receiving multiple requests for assistance. Industrial accident on Chardon Prime, environmental crisis in the Zeta system, and something about a diplomatic crisis involving the Krex hegemony." Sarah smiled as she looked out at the stars. Humanity had spent millennia thinking they were alone in a hostile universe. Now they knew they weren't alone, and they had found their purpose, making sure no one else had to face the dark alone either. "All right, people," she announced to her crew. "Looks like we've got work to do." In the end, that's what humans had brought to the galaxy. Not conquest or dominance, but the simple willingness to do the work that needed doing, no matter how dangerous or difficult it might be. The universe was still hostile, but now it had guardians who considered hostile to be just another word for interesting.